Hey, what's up guys? So there are two types of fuel containers in the game, the metal fuel tank and the expeditionary fuel tank. The metal fuel tank contains 100 units of fuel and can be purchased for about 90,000 rubles from Jaeger. The expeditionary fuel tank, meanwhile, only costs 60 units of fuel and can only be found on the flea market, usually for around 100 to 110,000 for a full tank or 70 to 80k for an empty one. If you're lucky, you can find a full tank for the same price as an empty one, but that's become less and less common lately. This means that the metal fuel tank costs about 900 rubles per point of fuel, while the expeditionary fuel tank costs somewhere between 11 to 1900 rubles per point of fuel. So obviously the metal fuel tank is better, right? Wrong. In point of fact, you should only be buying the expeditionary fuel tank, and in this video I'm going to show you exactly why. If this video does help you out, please give it a like and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more tips from me in the future. If you're looking for people to play with, come join my Discord server. We've got over 1,000 members and it's super easy to find people to play with there. Finally, come follow me on Twitch where I stream multiple times a week. All my links can be found in the description below. So, the reason the expeditionary fuel tank is a better value comes down to one main thing. It is used for crafting magazine cases in the lavatory in the hideout, which means even empty fuel tanks are very valuable. These magazine cases sell for around 320,000, and you need 2 expeditionary fuel tanks to make them along with a few other items. This is why even empty fuel tanks sell for about 70 to 80,000 on the flea market. Meanwhile, the metal fuel tank, even though at first it seems like a better value, is actually useless once it's all used up, which is why it only sells for a few hundred rubles or maybe 1,000 or 2,000 at most on the flea market once it's done. Because of this, even if you were to get a full 2,000 rubles off of selling an empty metal fuel tank, this only brings the total cost of the metal fuel tank down to about 880 rubles per unit of fuel. Meanwhile, even as a worst case scenario, if you were to buy the expeditionary fuel tank for 110,000 rubles and sell it only for 70,000, you'll have brought the cost down to just 667 rubles per unit of fuel. And as a best case scenario, let's say you got lucky and bought a full container for 70k, used it, and then turn around and sell it for 80k. Well, now you've wound up profiting 10,000 rubles from using that fuel tank, which means the cost to you is non-existent. Or if you're patient, you can actually pick up the rest of the supplies and make a magazine case yourself. Now, the flea market prices fluctuate wildly, but on average, even if you purchase everything off of the flea market, you can wind up making about 50k profit off of it all, which is excellent considering you're profiting off of using fuel, and if you're using your hideout correctly, then that fuel is helping you make money in a variety of ways. Now, I'm making this guide at the tail end of patch 12.5, and so the flea market prices are way out of whack right now, and with the flea market found in raid requirement coming up in 12.6 later this month, we might find that the flea market prices are going to skyrocket, and this math might not quite work out. If that's the case, then I'd suggest you employ one of 2 strategies for maximizing your profits in 12.6. First, if you buy a fuel tank off the flea market, you'll no longer be able to sell the empty container back on the flea market. However, items crafted in your hideout are given the found in raid tag, at least for the moment. So if you use those used fuel tanks to make magazine cases, you can sell those magazine cases on the flea market. Even if we lose those tags, Therapist still buys them for about 318,000 rubles, which is plenty of profit. Second, it's entirely possible that full fuel tanks will become outrageously priced on the flea market and no longer worth purchasing. If that's the case, then make sure you're collecting all the Zippo and Cricket lighters you can so that you can craft your own expeditionary fuel tanks and then either sell them full for those outrageous prices or use them and sell the empties depending on what kind of profit you might get. It might be very smart to only craft mag boxes out of fuel tanks that do not have the found in raid tag on them and sell all the ones that do on the flea market. Finally, I highly suspect that these fuel tanks are going to become very valuable whether full or empty, so in addition to making them with lighters in your hideout, I would also suggest you go out and find them in raid. Because of how punishing the weight system is now and how heavy these fuel tanks are, I suspect they're going to be far more valuable than they even are now because of how scarce they might be. So prepare to go into raids fairly light with big backpacks and you might come away with some very valuable loot. You can find these fuel tanks randomly in buried caches, bags, and crates, but you can find them more reliably in specific locations on some maps, like the bunkers on woods. Customs and reserve also are decent maps for finding them, but by far the best is Interchange, especially in Ollie. Where on the other maps you might only find one every couple of raids, usually on Interchange you can find one or more almost every single raid. Ollie is a great spot for it, like I said, but also so is this room, not far from Idea. One thing I'd highly suggest you all do early wipe in 12.6 is collect as many of these as possible and wait to start selling them until you see how they start to play out on the flea market. Crafting magazine cases requires the level 2 lavatory, and I suspect there's going to be 2 phases to this. If you can get access to the flea market extremely fast, you might be able to get very high value for your fuel tanks, both full and empty, before there's too many people selling them. That phase will probably go away pretty quick, so if you're not fast enough, you're going to miss out. The second phase is going to come a bit later once a lot of people unlock their lavatory, and suddenly there will be a huge need for these fuel tanks, both full and empty. Most likely you can capitalize this while a lot of people are looking to craft their first couple of magazine cases. Once most people have their cases, the demand for these cases are probably going to die back down a bit, and while you'll still be able to make some profit with your fuel tanks, I doubt you'll make an outrageous amount like will probably be possible during the early days or weeks of the wipe. Hopefully this video helped you all out. If it did, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel to see more content from me in the future. Come follow me on Twitch where I stream multiple times a week. You can get the link to that and my Discord server in the description below. Until next time, guys.